Starting out high energy on the Neon Crew podcast. Hell yeah.
Good? My wave's good? My good?
Keep going.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, you look pretty good.
All right.
And your waves are good too.
I always
You
get
look
nervous.
good and your waves are good.
That's what I'm talking. I'm telling you, I'm ready to pod today.
Yeah, me too. Both totally, completely healthy boys ready to pod. Ready to go. If you guys are curious, Mac and I both are kind of under the weather, so you're going to get a bit of a cold edition when it comes to the Neon Crew. Mac just gave a little bit of a sound effect in the terms of a cough.
Well, I can now use my favorite phrase, we're the illest.
Yes, that is your favorite phrase. I remember you tried to get pissy started on the podcast a few episodes ago, and I still think about that sometimes because it caught me off guard so bad, and I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I'm good for that. Throwing a wrench into it.
I'm going to start unironically using the term pissy for
just we could probably drop it in
everyday
an older
language.
film that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Real pissy. Dear pissy. Speaking of which, I'll intro.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the deer going to Nam, and I like the trees, you know? I like the way that the trees are on the mountains. All the different... the way the trees are.
Yeah.
Can you guess who that is and who I'm trying to impersonate?
Meryl Streep.
Yes, that's her.
Yeah.
She says that to John Cazale as he's laying in bed, trying not to let the cancer take him. Got real dark there. I'm sorry. Jesus. No, that was Christopher Walken from The Deer Hunter. And we're going to get into that movie. But first, I got a little bit of news to cap off the Writers' Strike Guild story that we touched on a couple weeks ago.
Awesome.
So literally the next day
Yes.
that we recorded, like not even joking, literal 24 hours after we got done speaking into a microphone about possible contracts and what could be the stipulations of it, they released the specifics of what's on the contract, and now the writer's strike is officially over. So
we missed it.
We missed it a little bit, but to be fair, we have a set schedule, and
True.
I mean, they're kind of a fluid situation. So if you think about it, they missed us.
I like that better.
Yeah.
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 It's like the structure of the Spanish language. It's not like you dropped a bowl.
Right.
The bowl fell from your hands. That's how that works. That's my line of thinking with it.
I like it. It's going to help me sleep tonight.
I hope it does, because I have been having trouble falling asleep with this fucking throat of mine. But there's a list of bullet points that I found that I want to go over.
Okay.
Just going over the different attributes of the contract that they drummed up in the deal. So I'll just go through these one by one. Studios can't force writers to use AI or train AI on writers' work. Better residuals based on streaming show performance, with streaming services sharing data with the guild. Better minimums for work across multiple areas of entertainment. Minimum sizes to writers' rooms and pre-greenlit writers' rooms. And if you want an explanation on that, this person also kind of went into detail about it.
Yes. That's what I am wondering.
Yeah, but I can go into it after these next couple
Okay.
points. Minimum hiring terms for writing staff, on regular shows, so writers have some level of stability. And then the last one, guarantees for writers being present during production. So let me go into what that...
It's actually going to play a little bit into the Deer Hunter, too.
Oh, yeah?
A little,
because there's a little bit of writing conflict with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I read up a little bit about it today. So basically touching on the greater point of minimum sizes to writers' rooms and pre-greenlit writers' rooms, what that means really is this person on Reddit, their name is Evil Anagram, who also put together the bullet points.
Nice.
Shout out to them. So they wrote... So, generally in the past, writers would produce a script for a show and sell it to a studio as a pilot. Studios would produce a single episode of that show and make the decision to buy or not buy the concept based on the performance of that episode. In the past 10 years or so, studios have been demanding more than just a pilot. They'll hire a mini writer's room to produce a short season's worth of episodes, claiming that they need more content before they'll make the purchase. The studio would pay these writers well under the rate for writing a season of television while essentially milking them for a full season. These writers are performing all of the work that goes into any normal season of television, but understaffed, underpaid, and without job security. The contract places limits on pre-greenlit writers' rooms, creates better minimum rates and contract periods, and forces studios to fully staff the writers' room. So basically what that means is if they want a full season of a show before they want a pilot, they have to treat the writers right and pay them as if they are writing a full season. They can't just loophole the shit out of it like they've been doing before.
I like that. I like that. That's a good CBA move.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown. Shout out to Evil Anagram on Reddit for putting that together.
Is that your moniker on Reddit?
No. My username on Reddit is Die With You. I know. It's real happy.
I mean, I hate to say it fits your personality, but
it also happens to be the name of an album of one of my favorite musical artists, Trevor Something. So shout out to him.
Cool.
Yeah, but you're right. It does. It kind of fits my whole aesthetic, doesn't it? Especially right now.
I was about to say the way that
death.
you're talking talking right now, and just rattle that off,
dude. So yesterday I recorded the Film Watch video as soon as I woke up. So not only was my voice kind of strained like this, it also had morning voice on top of it. I kind of almost sound like a cheap knockoff version of James Earl Jones. A little bit.
Okay.
You know,
I
feel like some people could find it
the bargain
pleasing to
bin
listen
James
to.
Earl Jones voice.
Very bargain bin.
Yeah.
Like Lame's Pearl owns or whatever.
I was about to say whatever the knockoff to the Dollar Tree is.
Yeah. Dollar Tree James Earl Jones.
50-cent soil.
Dark Vapor. That would be his name. But yeah, I wanted to get that out there because it was in the news, and hopefully it'll lead, like we said in the previous episode, to the actors getting a deal soon, and then production on shows and movies can start up again, because that'll be epic.
So the actors are still going at it.
The actors are still going at it. I think they are in talks with them, but that's the most that I've heard about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if the AI stuff and the residuals for the writers is going to tie into so that they were probably waiting to see what the writers were going to get, and then they'll be able to kind of come up with a little bit more for being somewhat of the same ilk. I mean, being of the talent.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of the same complaints that the WGA had, where it was a lot of residuals with streaming and concerns with AI in entertainment and art. Obviously, a little bit different facet, because with the actors, they were more concerned with the idea of procedurally generated extras and backgrounds that could replace, people rely on that for an income. Like, when you think of an actor, sometimes I think we tend to think of someone like Leonardo DiCaprio or like Christoph Waltz, or people who we know get paid the big bucks, when really there's like a ton of people out there who need it as a job. And that's what they do. That's kind of what they want to do, and that's what they rely on for their income.
It makes me think of the beta test when he's talking to the hotel clerk. He goes, "Are you an actor?" He goes, "Nope, this is pretty much it. What you're looking at."
Yeah. There's a lot more to it than I think what people initially believe surface level. So we'll see how it plays out.
And I know the residual thing's pretty big on them, and it almost makes me think that Fox was ahead of its game, because Fox would take a lot of writing stuff, do one season of it, and then cancel the show.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's been kind of going on for a while, where we see these studios that are getting these people in, filming 6 to 8 episodes, knowing that it's going to tank, but we're going to be able to create a streaming service and market it, underpay, and then collect, whoever subscribes or the marketing for it.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, it probably has been that way for a while. If you think about all the shows that come out that only have like a certain limited number of episodes for the first season, like
1893, wasn't that one of your ones?
1899. Yeah, I think that was 8 episodes, possibly.
I mean, I don't really know. It's speculation, but
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, and, we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but if there ever is anything else that develops from the SAG-AFTRA strikes, I will let you guys know.
Sweet.
Yeah, I will bring it to your attention. So how you been, Mac? I'm Kyle, by the way. I don't think we introduced ourselves yet.
I'm McClain.
Yeah. How you been?
Good. I got Preston up for the week. We went down, picked him up on Saturday, so he's with Grandpa. When you guys listen to it, he'll be back with his mom. But
Grandpa Parker or Grandma Full and Wider?
Nope, Parker. Yeah, we're not quite there yet with the well, I shouldn't say it like that. There's other things going around. But yeah, Grandma and Grandpa Parker.
Nice.
Yeah, and he's doing good. We've had football season's going well. We had a little bit of a setback on Friday, but I think we addressed what was going on. And then yeah, I mean, it's just kind of life, man. I mean, it is nonstop right now, especially with the baby being 7. If you ask Jasmine, it's within 2 weeks, but I think we're at like 6 weeks on Thursday.
Any day now, basically.
Oh yeah,
it could happen.
Well, I was talking to her. I'm like, you got to get your mind right. You got to think that this thing's going like full term. You know, because I was like, if you start wishing it in to be 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, and it goes longer than that, it's like you're just gonna be more and more uncomfortable.
You just got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And get into the mindset of it already, I guess. Speaking as someone who has never been pregnant,
right?
You know, I feel like I have a good perspective on it for some fucking reason.
I've only observed it. You know, I'm in the same boat.
You're like the next closest person to Jasmine, so
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah,
you feel a little bit of that anticipation,
well, been through
that
one
empathy.
of them before too, so kind of have that like, all right, this is how I would approach it now,
right?
Yeah,
you've already done this before. It's her first time. What's she complaining about?
Yeah. So what's going on with you, man? I think you had a busy weekend last weekend.
Yeah, I went to Megan's brother got married in New Orleans.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, I know. We flew down there. It was my first time down there. The furthest south I've ever been. And it was crazy. It was wild.
I've heard that place is nuts.
So, have you ever been? Or
no, I can't say I have.
I describe it, so basically I describe it as a place where you can go down a block and you can meet anybody from any walk of life. You could meet someone who is a wealthy Wall Street investor who is constantly on the go in a nice suit and tie, and then the next step you take, you could run into somebody who is literally homeless. Like, it's a crazy diversification of different peoples, different cultures.
Yeah.
Just a huge amalgamation of a melting pot. Like, we think of New York City as being a melting pot. Jesus, dude. Like, New Orleans is like that, I would say, times 10, while still retaining their own significant, specific culture.
Yeah.
Down there.
Yeah.
I described walking down Bourbon Street at night, which it wasn't even like Mardi Gras or anything. It was just like a random Saturday night.
Yep.
We walked down it, and I describe it as a GTA 5 server, just without the guns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, you could walk 30 seconds, and you could see people with pythons as like a street corner show. You could see strippers. You could see kids standing on milk crates right next to the strippers. You could see Christian fanatics on a megaphone trying to protest all the sinners down there.
Oh, wow.
And that's within like 30 seconds of walking through everybody going down Bourbon Street. Like, it's insane.
It's its own world is what I'm hearing.
It's its own world. Like, you basically go into a VR area, essentially, except it's still real life.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of crazy.
You're living in Minority Report when he's going through the...
Yeah.
Remember that? When he's going through... Yeah.
It feels like you're in a Hitman game just walking through a party. And
yeah.
It's crazy the amount of wacky characters you come across. But it was fun. I described it as every single day or every single night that I went to go lay in bed, I felt like I got my ass kicked. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't drink and I don't smoke or do anything like that.
Right.
It was still a lot for me.
Yeah.
But it was fun regardless. And we only stayed there for the weekend. So, Megan wanted to show me a lot more that we couldn't go experience just because of the time constraint. But had some good food. Had some fried catfish. That was fun.
Ooh.
Had some gumbo. That was really good. Tried some jambalaya. That was okay.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot more that I need to experience. One thing that I know you'll like is I went to a Saints game
I saw that. I saw your snap. We were going to.
I think I said, guess where I'm at.
Yeah. So what was funny is like when I first pulled it up, I thought you were at the Lions game. Completely, like I saw it, and then I don't know if I had to like relook at it or if I was just like, oh no, he's not at the Lions game. I'm like, he went to a Saints game.
Yeah. So Megan's brother was getting married on Sunday at 6:00. That was when the ceremony was starting, and Megan's in the wedding party. So she had to spend like most of the morning and a lot of the afternoon just getting ready, getting dressed and makeup and photo shoot, whatever, like any sort of bridesmaid duty she had to do. So she thought, well, what are you going to do during that time? Because you basically just have to get dressed and then you're good. It takes me
standing next to me.
It takes me like 5 minutes to get ready for a wedding if I need to. And so I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But
humble brag.
Her friends flew in from New York to go to this wedding, and they were looking for something to do for time to kill. So they were like, we're going to go to the Saints game. And they invited me to come along. And so I got a ticket online, and I met them at their hotel, and we walked to the stadium, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a really cool experience.
High intensity, just back and forth action.
High intensity, but it was like still enjoyable. It wasn't too chaotic, and it wasn't like the fans on each side were like toxic or anything.
Right.
It was like a lot of just like friendly banter and shit talking, but
yeah,
that's the most it ever got, which was nice. And the stadium itself was super cool. Like it was a enclosed stadium.
Yes.
So you walk in, there's like this huge ceiling, and it just opens up right in front of you. And even though we sat in sort of like a higher area in the stadium, we could still see pretty well what was happening on field. Like we didn't have to rely on the big screen or anything.
And that's you're down there. You're at an event, so it really isn't like you have to be in on the action to know what's going on in the game or like strategically looking at it. You could just be viewing it from a distance and have that other atmosphere going on and enjoy yourself.
It was fun. I really liked it. Even though the Saints lost and they didn't even get one touchdown. I think they got 3 field goals and that was it. I think it was like 24-3 or something, or 24-9. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were not coming back.
Football talk.
Yeah. That's the most football talk I've had in my life, I think.
Yeah.
But it was a good time, and I would definitely go to another one if the opportunity came up. So
football game or Saints game?
Football game.
Got it.
Yeah. Or like whichever.
Right.
I don't have any specific allegiance.
Yeah.
Really.
So we're finding out. That's why the shit talk didn't get to you.
No, really, it literally didn't. I wore a T-shirt with a camera on it, on like a graphic tee, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go hang out. I was in like all black, so I mean, most people assumed that I think they probably thought I was like cheering for the Saints or something.
Yes.
And I kind of was, because,
Well, you're down there. You're in New Orleans.
I'm down there. I'm in New Orleans. My girlfriend's from Louisiana, so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll get caught up a little bit in the sort of fanfare of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. Speaking of good time, I had a decent time in the theater when we went and saw The Creator.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, we might be on 2 different wavelengths. Just giving you the heads up now.
Oh, don't worry. I have my issues with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can grab this since you recommended The Deer Hunter.
Yes.
Pay no attention to my failing voice at all. So The Creator is a sci-fi film directed by Gareth Edwards, who also directed Rogue One, and I think the first Godzilla movie.
Yes.
Stars John David Washington as Joshua Taylor, and he essentially is a member of the military who is tasked with infiltrating and finding out the leader of this group of AI resistance fighters. So in this world, humans created AI, and they blame AI for the explosion that happened in Los Angeles, and so they're at war with each other. And John David Washington has a lot of mixed feelings because he's undercover and he's getting married to somebody who was part of the resistance, and then tragic fates of events unfold, and she dies in an explosion caused by Nomad, this big flying ship that basically nukes whatever the fuck it wants. And from there, he has to go retrieve the AI weapon, which turns out to be a little girl. And, conflict ensues, hijinks arise. Mac, this was the movie that we picked to pair with The Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
And I'm curious your thoughts. I'm curious where you're going to go with this.
I'm going to go down a very dark and unforgiving road. I will try not to. I'm very curious because So Sunday night when you sent me that snap, is me and Jasmine went to watch this, and
yeah, I saw you were at the movies.
Yeah, I was
I saw
like,
you at the counter getting popcorn or something.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'll let Kyle know I'm seeing this because it was like the only free night I really had as we were getting ready with all these games going on and Preston coming into town that we were gonna be able to see this. And yeah, I was like, I'm gonna get popcorn, we'll enjoy ourselves. And enjoy myself, I did not.
Oh.
I thought I wasted $40.
Damn.
Now I went and saw this, and I said I'm very curious as what you had to say because I was like I could see Kyle enjoying this, or I could see him being as pissed off as I am with it. So I'm gonna try not to shit on points. I'm really looking for more of what I missed because my fear is that I got so entrenched into not liking it right off the get that I might have missed things. But a lot of my anger with this thing is feeling duped in that this guy went out and put on a very shittily written movie with a bunch of effects that is getting notoriety. Like I saw this thing was rated at 7.3 or 7.8 on IMDb, and that made me even more pissed off that this movie's getting grace.
Yeah.
So anyways, did not like. We'll go into the rating, and I'm sure as I go along and vent here, I can already feel my heart rate getting up talking about this thing. That we'll talk about what we didn't like. So no, I did not enjoy it. I thought it was first peeve of mine, just really poorly written.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's how you felt with it.
I agree. I think that the script is absolutely the weakest part of this movie.
Dog shit.
And I don't even know if I right now can call it dog shit because I just don't remember a whole lot that happens. Yeah, because the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing I take away from this is the technical aspects and the visuals of this film.
Yes.
Because whether it's written great or not, you have to admit that it does look very visually impressive, especially when you think about how it had an $80 million budget and how they shot in a lot of different locations. And I like the fact that this movie doesn't really constrain itself to one specific area or just two areas for being a sci-fi film that's of this scale. It does go into different locations and showcases different areas and kind of flexes the visual style muscle that it has. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. The script is very weak, and the fact that I can barely even remember the things I had issues with when I saw this film initially, I think is very telling of the quality of the writing.
And it's funny that you say that because I told Jasmine, I said if there's like one thing that he's going to glean on, it's going to be the production of this thing. I liked it. I'm not bastardizing that.
Yes.
In terms of a look, fantastic. But this is I can only give so much of a pass for a film on the way that it looks and maybe how it sounds.
I agree.
Versus what we got.
Yeah.
Which was complete dog shit.
Because at the end of the day, a film is an element that encompasses so many different things about it.
Yeah.
That it needs to have those things work in order for the whole movie to work. And without it, it just kind of falls flat.
The acting in this thing is atrocious.
I'm not convinced that John David Washington is a good actor.
I'm not either.
I think he has the potential if he actually works on what it is that he can play off of strengths or whatever it is, but I feel like I haven't seen a role of his yet that I've been impressed with.
Dude, this is, and some of my friends, if they're listening, there's this movie that came out called Beckett, like straight to Netflix. And I'm like, he's playing the same guy. I'm pretty sure he's typecast. Like, Tenet came out and like
bland main character.
Yeah, like,
he's typecast as like
like
blank slate
action,
guy.
like bland action hero.
Yeah,
like it's John David Washington. So it's like, hey, who's that? It's the guy from Tenet. Oh, Tenet was this huge film that came out in 2020, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't. There's nothing that he does that makes me feel any sort of emotion for him. I mean, like, okay, we're going into it. If you haven't seen this film,
spoilers for
because I'm gonna shit as all over this film as much as I can because I've got my platform now. I was so mad watching it. One, the movie starts out with a really fucking bizarre 1950s robots are in your home commercial.
Yeah, that was a weird stylistic choice that didn't match up with anywhere else in the film. And it felt very derivative of something like Fallout, where they kind of use that 50s commercialism aesthetic to kind of give the story away.
But in Fallout, like, it's, hey, we got nuked in the 60s. Everyone's underground. Like, the technology's advanced while we've been underground, right? Like, it wasn't like...
Well, it's also because, like, those games... the time period is stuck in the 60s and the 50s.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's very much of that style still, and like they even still have music going on in those games.
It's
that
because
are from the time.
Like, so it comes out with this weird commercial of robots are in the world now, and then it's like, hey, we're just in 2036, and I'm like, if we're in the future and we know that robots weren't invented in the 50s, are we in a different universe, or was it just a really weird marketing campaign that they were trying to get us to like, hey, it's fun. It's just like, I didn't get it.
It was probably going for like an alternate timeline sort of thing, like something weird like that.
But they don't, right. You know, and to me, it should have been done more clever. I don't want to say cleverly, but should have been done better in the exposition. Because they use that as a, hey, maybe you're in a different world, but everything's still the same, right? Like we got New China up, and I think that was after the bomb comes, and then you're in this thing, like it just does this really weird ass commercial, and all of a sudden you're with John David Washington. What's his name? I don't want to.
Joshua Taylor.
You're with Joshua, and he's like with this person, and what you find out is, and this is what was fucking killing me, is like you find out that robots have gotten to the point where they're like creating new ideas. Never says if they understand emotions or pain, or it's just ideas that they can create their own, like artistically they can come up with their own thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like they can help out with advancing technology because they're able to process so much quicker. But at no point does it say, hey, these things have like feelings or emotions. They're just like people. I don't know if it's supposed to be inferred or if we're not at that point, but they don't say it. So that kind of irked me because I'm like...
It's one of those things where I think it could have been solved either by being a little bit better in handling the exposition at the beginning, or just pull a Blade Runner and put the text on screen with this eerie music that kind of sets up the world, and then have us dive right into it.
Yeah.
We read the text, we understand what's going on, we're like, okay, we're good to go. And then we jump into it. And then we can get behind the different things that the characters are doing, why the AI people are fighting for their rights, and you understand it a little bit better. Because it's weird how this movie at points tries to... I don't want to say it like almost tries to make a morally gray issue out of the conflict between the AI versus the humans and Americans.
Correct.
But I don't know. It feels like it wants to like go into those territories without really fully getting in there. You know,
it kind of feels like a bigger statement for where we are as a society and welcoming in new races, new generations. We're pushing more towards understanding and peace than we are towards, you know, violence and segregation and all that, right? Like it kind of, I thought there might be a political message in here with that, and maybe there is that I just missed, but I never really fully was like, oh yeah, like I'm on the same, like I understand the robot's plight.
Yeah, I thought it was going to have more of like an ends justify the means conflict where, because you get that one scene where Ken Watanabe's character is talking to like the AI robot guy about how they're gonna have to send her up there and she's gonna die when she brings Nomad down, but that's a sacrifice they're willing to make. But then they never bring that up again, and then that situation is never touched on. Like, she ends up going up there anyway, and she does her thing, and she's completely fine at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Like, they bring things up only for them to abandon them.
Never pay off.
In one fell swoop.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's just I'm just going to try to keep this going as linearly as I can with how much shit that I was just fucking irritated with.
Yes.
And maybe you can shed light on it with how you feel. But
if I can remember it.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, like, you get the thing where the wife dies, you know, and and it's kind of like, oh man, like man, that's troubling. Like, I wonder where he's gonna go next. Like, obviously this is a big blow, and they've set up enough intimacy between the two where you kind of feel, you know, a little bad for him, and you're not sure if it was a robot or a human. So there's a little bit of like, how's he feeling, you know? And they do some weird cut scenes. And then all of a sudden he's in a pool with like these two generals coming up to him. Like, they do this weird. So the really weird part about it is that he's infiltrating, and I just can't remember the timeline if I was right or not. But like they somehow smash cut the bomb going off in L.A. to maybe towards why he's on the on this like mission to take down AI and infiltrate their home base, you know. And all of a sudden Nomad's in here. You got a little bit of like, oh, we've created Nomad. And then cutscenes, him going down, remembering stuff, and all of a sudden the generals are there, which horrible actors. And it's, we need you to go back on this mission. And he's like, no, I don't want to. You know, like he doesn't care. And it's like, well, maybe your wife is still alive. And you go, you know, Maria or whatever her name is, like, oh, I will do this then. I got to go find her. But like, it's not even convicted.
No, it's not convicted. It's not convincing. And I think it has a lot to do, too, and maybe this is why, like, I don't want to be, like, super hard on John David Washington, but again, like, I haven't seen anything to really wow me from him. But I think a lot of it, too, is just the script and the directing of the actors, because Allison Janney isn't a bad actress.
No, she isn't. I remember she's in Bad Teacher, Bad Education with Hugh Jackman, about like a really small thing with embezzlement going on in the richest like New York private school there is, or public school.
Yeah.
And she was awesome in it.
She's got range and she's got the ability, but her trying to play this villain character the way she's written, it just doesn't feel like it matters.
No,
like
shit.
She says her motivation to destroy the AI, it's because, oh, they tortured my sons and blah, blah, blah. But then you don't really see it in her character and the way that she acts. It's just very bland and straightforward. And that's what I feel like all of these characters are. It's just very bland and straightforward. There's no real range to a whole lot of it. I mean, honestly, shit, maybe the kid was like the best actor in the movie.
Like, honestly, and that was only because I didn't really like, I wasn't like paying attention to her, because I'm like, well, I should say paying attention, but I mean, she's just playing a robot. Like, hey, you're a one-trick pony. You're just going to play it well. Yeah,
but she's also the character that, like, shows the most emotion and, like, cries all the time and, like, gets upset. And, like, you kind of believe it, especially when you put them next to these people who just don't have that emotional depth to those characters.
Zero. So they fucking recruit him. He decides to join. They tell him they're going 400 miles away from the base. You know, like, we're out of, like, whatever range, you know. They get in there, but mind you, they said in New China, which was so much of the shit was contradicting. They said in New China, where they were at, the people in there side with the AI, so they're helping them out. It wasn't like the AI are there and they've infiltrated this world, and like Blade Runner, we don't know who's real and who isn't. They obviously know. And so they put the premise that you're in enemy territory because they're going to take the sides of the AI. Well, later in the film, they don't.
Yeah.
There's people hunting them down, and they're like helping, like the general who's in, like, wants to destroy New China for helping the AI that are helping her, like, well, I shouldn't say almost helping her out, but for no reason hunting these robots, right? So you get into the base, he finds out who the fucking ultimate weapon is. Not even really. It's like, I don't know if she's the one or not, but she knows where my wife's at now. Like, maybe, right?
Yeah.
The whole troops get separated. Shit goes haywire. Allison Janney makes it out of the whole fucking, there's a bomb that goes off, there's firefights everywhere, and she just ends up on a road and gets to talk to John David Washington because he caught cell service for like all of a hot second, you know, after they get out. The bomb goes off in this like warehouse thing, right? The chick sees it, the little girl watches the explosion come by, doesn't move, which no big deal. She's a robot. Like, I don't know like how, you know, maybe ground, however it goes. He gets knocked off his feet, and the very next scene ends up in a boat.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Who took him there? Because the only guy that's there is dying with him. Like, dying.
I thought that, because wasn't there like the Asian guy that was there also? Like, not Ken Watanabe, but like another Asian guy.
He was the homeowner of the rice paddy that they were at.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, my memory is not great when it comes to this movie.
The problem that I have with it is, like, I don't want to have justifications for why it makes sense. They just don't explain things, and we're on to, like, these other scenes, like horrible scene continuity.
Yeah, the fact that we're even talking about it says a lot about the way the script is written.
Oh, my God. Like, and then he's trying to tell the little girl to go away. Like, he, like, somehow saved her, and then they get out here, and he's like, piss off. Like, I don't need you anymore. Like, oh, you're just some random ass thing that I just saved for no reason, you know? And then there's a firefight, and then they get into this car, and then like a bomb gets thrown in, and the dog grabs the bomb, and everyone's like laughing. There's a lot of dog brutality in this thing, by the way.
That's the second moment that an animal gets a hold of a weapon and activates it.
Yes.
For the good guys.
Yeah.
Because, like, the dog brings the grenade back, and then I think it's, like, a fucking monkey that activates the grenade on the big tank later in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. They love animals. They love this Deus Ex Machina animal interrupting the flow of the story.
There we go. Like, there you go. Two of them. Not one, two. Yeah. Right? And so they get in the truck. They're going away. The guy's like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. You know? And so then they find out. They find these people. This is when I started getting really mad with the film, because I've been like, I don't really know what's going on. It's visually stunning. I shouldn't say know what's going on, but like, I know why Joshua's back. He wants to find his wife. Like, not sure. We're the general's bad, but hasn't really played off the bad part yet. Like, we just haven't had a lot. I kind of like, I understand we're trying to take out the robots. I don't really have any I don't feel anything for the robots, because like they're robots, you know. Like, we've tried to make them like within all of 5 minutes, import them into society, and make us have some sort of empathy for them with no real justification whatsoever. So anyways, I'm like sitting there, I'm starting to get like, what the fuck is going on? And this car pulls up, and they got to take the little girl, right? And well, he's like, well, we got to hide you, and the guy dies. So then Allison Janney comes up, and they pull out the super expensive device that I can only imagine super expensive. And this might be like really nitpicking, but this is now you can see how mad I was getting. They scan this dude's memory to get the last 30 seconds of his file, which they said, oh, he's going cold. We can only scan this much, you know? And he dies, and they just leave the equipment there, right?
They just left the equipment there?
Yeah, this whatever was.
I don't even remember that. Dude, wow, that's so stupid.
I'm like they do this whole thing to fucking, and I'm like, Sarah, I'm like, that's probably really expensive.
Yeah,
like that's all I was thinking is like they've got this device to read the last imprinted memories.
We don't need this. We got a vendetta against John David Washington.
Like, we're out. And by the way,
let's go kill him, even though we don't have any evidence that he's working against us now.
They get captured. This is another thing. They get captured, and he goes. Trying to catch myself. They somehow out clever the robots in this like Humvee to escape. The guy chokes out a robot, and the robot makes the choking out noise. And I asked Jasmine. I said, "Can those robots breathe?" And she's like, I don't know. They didn't really explain. I go, then why the fuck is he going?
Yeah, it's weird. This movie doesn't really do a good job of explaining the sort of biology of an AI being, because they look so much more like machines than something like Blade Runner. At least the whole point of Blade Runner was you couldn't tell who and who wasn't
and it, like
a
the
replicant.
technology, like the visuals.
And the technology was advanced enough. And it's like you could argue that a replicant is a human being. Whereas this movie is very much not concerned with having those discussions of whether or not AI has those human emotions or has those human feelings, because they do. Their whole mission is basically to just show you how robotic they are.
Yes.
And just how mechanical they turn out to be. And one
of them gets choked out.
They bring certain stuff up to maybe bring the question of AI and its implications on ethics and humanity and stuff like that, but they only touch on it very surface level. One of the biggest problems I had was they set up the possibility of John David Washington's wife, Maya, I think her name is. Maya. They set her up as being alive because he sees security footage of someone who looks like her. And I feel like it could have been a really great emotional and effective punch if they had built up him coming across her maybe he thinks he sees her, but maybe it's not her. They could have made it a lot more ambiguous. And then he finally confronts someone who looks like her, and then you get the realization that people can sell their likeness, and AI people can download it and apply it to themselves, and they look like that person. But the way that they reveal it is so happenstance. It's very, there's anticlimactic elements about it. It's just there.
It just happens.
It just happens, and it's okay, I guess that's that then. It doesn't feel like it crescendos into anything. That should have been a big emotional moment for the main character.
This is his whole plight right now throughout this film isn't with the girl, it's him finding his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just she's in the kingdom of monks.
Yeah.
We've just kept her alive because she's comatose.
Hooked up to a life support, basically.
Yeah, and she's been like this for since the bomb.
Uh-huh. But then, the little girl, or I think, does John David Washington do it, or does the little girl do it, where, she downloads the memory into that same machine?
I believe he does.
He does, but then she puts it in the android that looks like her.
Yeah.
And then they have that final little cute moment at the end of the movie where they're hugging and she's trying to get her arms around the big ass astronaut suit, and it's kind of funny. But that's supposed to be the most we ever get in terms of closure and emotional moments in this movie, and it just, in my opinion, is not handled well.
It sucks. It sucks. It's not very good at all. And it's
very succinctly put.
It's just hey, we'll get you your big payoff. You're so invested with our characters right now, is that you're gonna see the little girl crying and she's gonna miss him, and he's understanding that it's been you that I've been looking for, and I totally understand AI now, and it can make me feel this way, and I get my chance to say goodbye to my wife because she can remember even though it's a different person. Very big philosophical ponderings that you could have that they just gloss over, and then they wrap up at the end and make you kind of
very surface level.
Yeah, and it's cheap. It's cheap. I think it's cheap. I think it's a dumbass way of doing it, and it sucked. And even Jasmine saw it, she's I kind of felt bad for the little girl at the end. She's she was crying, and she obviously could tell that she was upset. She's that's about it.
Yeah, because she's the best actor in the movie.
Yeah.
She gives the best performance out of anybody.
Dude, and oh my God. So I was thinking about it too. I'm they make this person, this weapon, seem like it can end all endings, right? And you're oh man, you just have to get her somewhere where she can just maybe spot. I don't even know how her powers worked. And then I realized how stupid the ending is. She's going to end Nomad. If no one brings her up to the ship, she can't do it.
Yeah.
So then I'm you're this is a bad James Bond movie. Where it's hey, we've got this destructive, the Death Star.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to ruin Star Wars for anyone. But you've got this weapon, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, it only works if it's within 20 feet.
Yeah.
It's not a weapon.
we haven't like upgraded her yet. We're waiting for her to grow.
So while Nomad kind of maybe strikes on us and we're down, when she eventually gets to the point she can fly a ship, she can go up there and destroy it 30 years from now, like after she gets her pilot license.
Yeah, it was super janky.
None of it makes sense. None of it was good, and the guy fucking was relying on these visuals and all this stuff going on to make up for how shitty the characters were and the script was, and I'm not giving it a pass.
There was also that weird moment too, where it's like before the big climax of the movie where. So they escape the cave. They escape the temple area where Maya is.
Yeah.
And the U.S. soldiers see John David Washington and they say to him like, "Oh, there you are, sir. Well, we'll bring you up to Nomad and we'll get you all fixed up." Like I swore they said that to him. And I'm like, "Oh, is this really where the movie's going to go? Are they just literally going to bring them up there and then just have her destroy it?"
Yep.
Which, I mean, you know, at least it didn't go in that territory, but
very easily could have.
It very easily could have, and it was brought up in the movies, so it was very jarring. I was like, "Oh God, are they just gonna like end the movie now?" That's crazy.
Dude, at one point, I was getting so mad, I was like sweating, and I looked at my phone. I go, "There's still an hour left of this shit, dude." This is like what? How long of a film? 2 hours?
I can tell you
2 hours
right now.
30?
It's 133 minutes, so
just over 2 hours.
About over 2 hours.
Yeah, I got through an hour. An hour. There's so much shit that happens within an hour. They're going to Nomad. Like he's taking out the little girl, you know, on the just stand by. And I like looked at my phone. I'm like, we got to be coming up on it. We haven't been. I feel like this has been 2 hours. I'm like, nope, still an hour left. I go, we've done like the first 2 acts in an hour, and the third act is now an hour. And a third act that has no reason of being a third act, no payoff whatsoever, and no stakes.
Yeah. My biggest issues with this is the fact that it's so forgettable. And really, like, John David Washington just brings it down for me. Like,
they all did.
His acting specifically, because I mean, like,
yeah,
everyone else being mediocre, yeah, it sucks, and that would have been nice if they were better actors. But even if John David Washington was a good actor and was carrying this movie, then I would have thought, oh, this is a decent film. It's not perfect. It's not even great, but at least it's something that I can get behind. And really, it's just his performance that brings it down for me. I think he needs to really dig into himself and find whatever emotional capabilities that he can possibly dig out, because I have yet to see a movie that he's in where he's just not playing stoic, blank slate main character.
Dude, like Tenet was, like, to me, justified, right? Like, I get that. Like, that one, I kind of like, all right, there you go. You're the, you know, because they all played the same person in Tenet.
His name is literally protagonist in Tenet.
Yeah, like, that's what I say. I'm still sicking up that it was like a parody on like a James Bond film. You know,
it's a parody of a Nolan film at points.
Yes, and this one is like, I could care. I told, oh my, I love you, Jasmine. Thanks for listening to me when I vent. I told her, I said, they don't even need the wife in this thing. I go, he was so bad. Like, you might as well just have him be like an anarchist for, you know, a revolutionist and join the coup, as opposed to like, let's come up with this really solemn reason for why he would help this little girl. Because like, their relationship is never all that great. You never am like, you're like, oh man, I really hope that he connects with this little girl.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, just take out the wife angle and have him be like, you know, like, AI is good. We need to save AI. I will do whatever I can. And then you can pit him against the government and make it feel justified.
Yeah, I mean, he would have had enough justification because essentially he believed for 5 years that the government literally killed his wife.
Yeah.
So he would have had enough reason to have a vendetta against them and to have that sort of deep emotional resonance that he would have needed to make this film compelling. But unfortunately, they try to play him as if he's nihilistic and doesn't care and is ambivalent to everything. Like, he literally tells them like, oh, I don't care if the world, if we go extinct.
Yes.
But it just doesn't come across as something that is compelling to see with this type of movie.
Well, why don't you have some dialogue in there where if he wants to be the reason why I don't care, and then like they get into an argument about what AI does, and he goes, "Well, aren't they good because of this then?" And then have people go like, "Oh man, never really thought about it like that." And then he goes, "Yeah, but they also are capable of doing this." And I go, "That's why we hate them." And he goes, "That's why I don't care." You know, like I've seen both sides of the coin here, and it's 50 one way, 50 another. I just don't want to get back. Like, hey, you're just like upset husband guy that has these range of like this capability of being a super militaristic superhero.
Yeah.
And it is just, I mean, like, dude, it's so badly written. They had to introduce his friend and then had a smash cut or a flashback to the friend because they didn't introduce him.
That's right, yeah, because they had to cut back to that scene that they play at the beginning of the film, so you're reminded of who this guy is.
He wasn't in it. He wasn't. They do like the before he goes, dude, you're gonna be on this mission. You got to go in deep undercover. He goes, yeah, but you know, Brad, I don't know if I can do that, man. He's like, yeah, you got to make her fall in love with you, dude. And he goes, oh man, I don't have the capability of love. And then it goes back to like, Brad, what's up, man? He's like, yeah, no, I found my hot robot wife.
Wasn't his name Drew?
Whatever the fuck.
The only reason that stood out to me is because of my coworker.
Yeah, no, I get that, Drew. Shout out to Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started opening laughing at that because I was like, this, like, I've seen like sitcoms that joke about we should have a flashback just in case you don't remember these characters, and then they'll do it as a joke.
Yeah,
like at one point in this film, and I don't know why I keep doing this. Maybe it's just to like keep any sort of sanity I have left. Is like I just go, I turn it into parody. Like, oh, Gareth Edwards got the script and was like, I don't want to do this. This isn't like, I don't want to make a blockbuster action, you know. And they're like, you're doing it, monkey dance.
Yeah, who wrote this?
I don't.
That's a good question.
I hope to God it wasn't him, because if it is, I don't know if I'm gonna. Because he directed Rogue One, which was fucking awesome to me.
Screenplay by Gareth Edwards and Chris Weitz. I don't think he wrote Rogue One though. This might be one of those cases where it's a Nicholas Winding Refn, where like the directing's really good for the most part, except for the actors, but the writing is just the weakest thing about it.
I'm really feeling like you gotta write your movies that you're making. Because at this point, like, if you can't get behind the characters, or you're coming up with, like, there must have been some sort of confusion on, like, John David Washington's motivation and what he was seeing as a character versus what Gareth Edwards had in mind as the director. Because it comes out as just dog shit.
Oh, my God. I think that that might be a good place to end this discussion.
Yeah, whatever it was.
I don't think there was anything more I had to bring up. Honestly, I really didn't think it was as terrible as you did. I didn't think it was great. I don't even think it was good necessarily, but it is something to be said about like the visual style of it and how good this movie does look for the budget that it had, because it had $80 million, which, I mean, you know, to us is like, oh wow, I'll never see that money in my entire life. But in terms of Hollywood feature films, that's pretty substantial.
And there's some good looking scenes. I mean, like, you can't. Art Nomad looked awesome. You know, some of that artificial.
The landscape. I liked how it was filmed as like, it kind of had that grainy quality to it almost a little bit. Like, especially with like the greenery and the different sort of like skyscrapers and backdrops. I read that they filmed it and then they layered the special effects over it. And it kind of reminded me of like Neil Blomkamp movies, like at points, like District 9 or Elysium or whatever. Yeah. Which even Elysium isn't good, but at least it looks nice.
Yeah, well, it's the sci-fi films. If you can get down the visual and some of that like world creation, you can do a decent job with it. I'm not knocking that. I don't think this was a sci-fi film that didn't have vision of a different, you know, well, maybe not different universe, or at least a futuristic look to it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, yeah, the visuals, if you muted the whole film and just wanted to watch it, or at least just have the score going off when there's certain events happening, sure. But, like, none of it felt rewarding. I'll just say that. I didn't care where they were at because it just turned into a really bad story of something that will never happen. And I just was like, we're not even questioning things going on around us. It's just like, hey, we're going to take, Rambo and put it into fucking 2036.
Yeah. Except we're going to give Rambo less emotion.
Yeah. and like, it's just, hey, by the way, it's just straight storyline. It's just straight A to B. Like, not much going on. There's not much thinking around it. Like, we're literally just going to follow this person as he tries to save robots who you probably don't even care about.
And that's one of the biggest things to me is that, like, you can have themes in your movie that you want to touch on that have depth, that have emotional weight to it, that sort of have some heady messaging going on. But if you're going to do that, either really delve into it or don't bring it up at all.
Yeah.
Because when you kind of half-ass it, it weighs the script down, and it just only does you no favors.
True. And you're setting up a world in which you have very little exposition on the world that was being set up. So you're not really familiar with where you're at. There's no rules that are put in place. There's no, like, they kind of touch on it a little bit. And that's about it. It's take it where you want at this point, and it's not even like we took a side with it. It didn't make you feel robots were good or bad, did it? It just kind of said they're here. No,
it really didn't make me feel any which way, mostly because I've forgotten a lot of what happens.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say if it got you going at a point talking about it, you would have been like, oh yeah, like I do remember that, or I felt this way. Like, the blandness that I'm hearing from you is just a movie that you saw that's gone.
It's like The Gray Man for me. Like,
yeah,
there's like certain things that I have issues with, but certain things I like, and a lot of it I just don't remember.
Yep.
It's same character too. You could literally switch the character of Ryan Gosling from Gray Man and John David Washington from this movie, and they'd be the same character.
Oh, 100%.
That, like, sort of blank slate, stoic protagonist. It's epic, and it's so fun to see. What would you rate this film?
So I originally wrote a 5 out of 10 because I was like, the visuals on it, like the score, and then I was like, you know what, fuck that. So I gave it a 3 out of 10.
Damn.
Yeah, this movie sucked. This movie is a waste of time, and it's like The Gray Man. I bet you I probably have the same score for that, because as soon as you said it, I was like, that's a very good parable, to, like, where this thing does nothing. It's going to get talked about, and then it will be lost in time, eroded in the sands of Lake Michigan.
Yeah. To me, I didn't hate this movie as much as you did. I think that the technical aspects are impressive at the end of the day, and the production value is really something to note. However, it shouldn't be used as a crutch for a weak script and for bad acting when it comes to this movie. If you want to have a simple, straightforward sci-fi hero's journey, that's fine, but either delve into the world head first like Blade Runner,
yes,
or just take a nice hands-off approach and give us at least a decently cool action movie along with it, where we don't have to think about anything and we can just watch it surface level for what it is. Because to me, this is very average.
Oh yeah,
I don't really have a lot in terms of negativity because I just don't remember a whole lot. This film isn't that notable to me.
You're lucky.
Just because the script is so simple and so forgettable. So I had this at a 6 out of 10, but for this conversation and thinking about it more and talking to you about it, probably bump it down to a 5. But that's probably the lowest I would go with it, because to me, the worst a movie that can be is average and forgettable, and that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. No, well, this isn't it. Yeah, it's worse than that. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. You're right. I mean, the production and all that stuff's cool, but you said a crutch. I really take offense when movies do that. It's the same reason why The Gray Man. All movies that lean on one thing one way or another and say, hey, we're a really great film because of this, and you're supposed to forget about everything else. I'm like, no, it all goes into it. So the 3 out of 10 is, for me, is like the 3 stars are the product. Like, that's the highest it could go for me. And that's where I'm giving the production value to it, because you can't knock that out. But at the end of the day, I mean, for me at least, there's
a lot more that goes into a film than just that.
Yeah.
100% understand. Speaking of understanding
or misunderstanding,
some characters have kind of a misunderstanding because they speak different languages, that language being Vietnamese, and there's a Vietnamese war in The Deer Hunter, which is the film you recommended.
Yeah. So we got The Deer Hunter. Came out in 1978. Do we sprinkle in trivia, or do we talk about it then, or however?
Whatever you think is best.
What I've read is this is the original Oscar bait movie that came out because they couldn't get a buyer.
Interesting.
Yes. So
buyer for distribution,
yes,
production?
For distribution.
Okay.
So they eventually found a production line, but the production line, in terms of like finding someone to distribute the film, I don't think it must not have went well with test audiences. They brought in a marketing guy who at the time was kind of ahead of the game. And he said, listen, let's have this come out. We'll show it to select theaters, really like-minded individuals that critique films because they'll love it. And then you'll get some nominations behind it, and then we'll release it after the Oscars, or like kind of leading up to the time of the Oscars. So like when you're looking at, late January, early February. And that's what they did because these people that went in loved it. They got some nominations, and then they just went full frontal with it and just put it out. So it came out in 1978, written, directed by Michael Cimino.
Yeah, I think it's Camino.
The
screenplay credits and the story credits were the most interesting behind the scenes aspects of this movie lie.
So, Derek Washburn Washburn wrote the screenplay. Camino
did he though?
Well, that's a great question. We'll get that out, and then we can hit that one right up front.
Yeah.
Louis Garfinkel and Quinn Redeker credited with the story because I think that they took this off of a short story or
It was a spec script that those two had written.
Got it.
Called The Man Who Came to Play.
Yes.
And it was more so about like a guy who goes into an underground casino game with Russian roulette happening.
Yeah, in Vegas, right? Like it's not even so they kind
it's not even in Vietnam.
Right. They kind of took it into the Vietnam era. So an in-depth starring. All right, Robert De Niro as Michael, Christopher Walken as Nick, John Cazale as Stan, John Stavage as Steven, Chuck Aspergren as Axel, George Zunza as John, and I'll end with Meryl Streep as Linda. And
listen, Linda,
essentially, it's a story about some friends from a steel mill in Pennsylvania that are getting together to celebrate their friend's wedding on the eve or close to the eve of their departure for Vietnam. And we get to be a part of their lives and get to see what life is like before war happens, and then we get to see what life is like after war happens, and we also get to see life, what it looks like to be a POW in war. Most of what I heard about that side of it was that's all speculation and creative artism, or what do you creative solutions, if you will, to build the story. But regardless,
creative liberties.
Yes, thank you. I knew it was something around freedom or America.
I got you. I had to think about where you were going, but
yes.
I got there.
Yeah, and that's essentially the examination of this 3-hour film. So, first things first, let's get the story out of the way. Do you want to tackle that? Do you want to say kind of whatever you read on it?
Oh, like the behind the scenes stuff?
Yeah, Derek Washburn.
So I read a little bit before you came over, and I usually go through like the production page on Wikipedia just to kind of get like a gauge as to the history behind it. And so one of my biggest takeaways was that Michael Cimino and what was his name, Derek Washburn, were working on the script together, and there were some creative differences. There was a falling out, and basically there's two different versions of the story. Michael Cimino's version is that Derek Washburn would just get drunk the whole time while Michael Cimino was left to do the heavy lifting with the script. And then Derek Washburn's version of the story is I spent a whole month working 20 hours a day, every day, putting this script together. And then Michael Cimino and one of the producers sat down with me and fired me on the spot and then put their name on the writing credit. And Derek Washburn had to fight for legitimacy to put his name as being credited as writing the screenplay, which ultimately did end up happening. And Michael Cimino was vocally opposed and did not agree with that, and said something along the lines of, he didn't do anything, he just got drunk, and we had to pick up the pieces of where he left off, yada, yada, yada. And the guys who wrote the spec script were given story credits, which someone who represented them even said that that was just a drop in the bucket for them. Like, that's kind of worse than a slap in the face.
Yeah.
They should have been given screenplay credit. Whether or not like we agree with that is kind of up to us, but regardless, there was a lot of different behind the scenes beef with Michael Cimino and Derek Washburn, with Michael Cimino and the studio executives, and going over budget. The film ended up being 3 hours long. The studio wanted to cut it down to 2.5 hours. They ended up showing 2 different versions of the screener to test audiences. And Michael Cimino has even quoted as saying that he intentionally sabotaged the projections for the 2.5 hour cut so that people would favor the 3 hour cut more. And ultimately, studios went with the 3 hour version of this film,
which I'm very happy they did.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about that because I really did like this movie. Good. And this is one that I think will stick with me for a while, just with the acting and the characters. And it gets into like really heavy emotional places, and is one of the few movies that I've seen that takes place in Vietnam that really has its own unique identity to it. But at the same time, I will say, I wonder what that 2.5 hour version of this movie would have been like, because it was a little long. It was a little long, and it's one of those where like 3 hour movies, they can be that long and they can fly by, like
Yes.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
And then you get movies like this where it's 3 hours, and I love most of what happens, but I couldn't help but feel like maybe some of it could have been trimmed down. Maybe we could have gotten to certain points quicker, and it would have cut out some of the fat of this.
The stuff with Linda, as soon as we get back from the war, probably could have been chopped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, De Niro falling asleep in the hotel, and just kind of that there wasn't really any sort of emotional weight to it. Everything was really at that point with the friends and ingratiating yourself with society again.
Well, we're getting the same emotional weight in previous scenes that we do that one.
Yeah.
Like, that one doesn't even necessarily need to be there in order to convey that feeling, because we already got that with other scenes before it.
Well, I'm saying like the whole storyline with Linda in the third act could have been wiped.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just didn't really... And you have it. I don't know exactly why. I don't want to say why it's in there, but like you're kind of... Everything that's going on with De Niro and getting back to normalized life doesn't require her.
No, but I still like it. I still think it's a compelling part of the story, especially because they establish it so early on with the way that they look at each other at the wedding, and there's like a bit of sexual tension there, and
yeah,
there's kind of like obviously there's a barrier of her relationship with Nick being in between them. But then it's an interesting thing to kind of touch on it when he comes back from the war, and there's that dynamic. And because they set it up earlier in the film, I don't know, to me it's pretty justified in existing.
I'm not saying it's not. Don't get me wrong on that. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying if we wanted to trim the fat, because I felt like the whole time De Niro's mind, as he's looking for a human connection, and they're using her as that kind of dummy, you can tell that he's more still focused on his friends and getting them back. And that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not knocking that aspect. You could trim easily 20 minutes, I feel like, and towards the end of that film with their relationship. At least that's how I felt, was that it was somewhat of a strain, and obviously him trying to find his identity again. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I'm watching De Niro, and it's just like, dude, you're not even thinking about that girl. Like you're literally just using her for, to kind of help carry some of your load. And it was more of, I need to get my friends back, and maybe when they come back, life will be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how this movie kind of methodically goes through each different facet of the script and of the story, because it's not like things are happening all at one time, but it doesn't really feel like it a lot of the time, because it just goes through them one by one. Like, I'm spending time with the friends, I'm spending time with Linda, I'm going to visit was it Steve,
Stan, or the bartender,
the guy who lost his legs.
John.
Is his name John in the film?
Steven.
Yeah.
It's John. Stan, Steven.
There's a lot of
John.
There's a lot of Steves and a lot of Johns.
John was the bartender. So that's Stan, John, Steven, John. No, Steven. Steven. Buddy that lost his leg.
Up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
Yep. X, B, select, start. So they kind of go about it like very methodically. And I do like that approach, because sometimes I feel like movies can be too bogged down at the same time when all these different things are happening at once. It can feel convoluted. And this movie really isn't concerned with that. It's kind of just taking you through this character's mindset and approaching it one at a time with each thing. And they tie together, and there's a thread there for sure. But at the same time, each thing is very much its own thing. I do like the way that was told, and the way that it was filmed, and how it was presented to us.
I did too. I mean, it kind of like, it's like, you know, in a tracking shot where it'll pick up a character and we'll follow that character, and then it, like, there's an interaction and it transitions to the next character, and then they walk away and start doing their own thing, and then it follows them, and then, you know, there is a little bit of a sense of that as you're going along, as these guys kind of interact, as who the story's starting to follow now, and a little bit of where their emotional state's at. You know, like the wedding was really fun in terms of, like, you get to see Steven being the new groom. You know, you get to see Nick and his fascination with Linda. And then it gets over to Michael, who's so much in control of his own emotions. And then you get to see him being drunk. Then it shifts over to the bar buddy and Axel as they're having a rompous time. And you can kind of get the sense that everyone, as they're approaching leaving, is sort of going through their own agenda, while they're all in one area for one particular reason. And that's to celebrate the life, or the love that is of Stephen and not sure
Angela.
Angela.
Yeah. I really like that wedding scene quite a bit. And I read that it was originally supposed to be 21 minutes of the film.
Oh.
And it ended up being 51 minutes.
Dude,
which is really funny, but I think it works. And the way it's drawn out, it gets you used to that life, and it gets you used to the way things are. And then when things just suddenly jarringly change to Vietnam, and that's one of my favorite moments in this movie, I think, by far, is when they're in the bar, and I think it's John who's playing the piano.
Yes, very, very, I don't know if it's like...
it's very somber.
And I can't remember if it's like God Bless America, or if it was a song, like, you know...
They sing that at the end.
They do. I'm just trying to remember the song. It is a very somber song. It's a beautiful song, and it kind of... Everyone has that moment of clarity of, this might be the last time that we all... get to celebrate, you know, things together.
And it's got so much weight to it. So then when it jarringly cuts to Vietnam and Michael's in the thick of it, it has an effect.
Oh yeah.
It has that deep emotional effect to you, like, oh shit, like things are so different now. Like, and life can just happen like that, like in the blink of an eye. I really like that. That's probably one of my favorite parts of this movie by far.
Yeah. Dude, the first time I'd seen this thing,
so how many times have you seen this?
Twice now.
This is your second.
Yeah. And I wanted to rewatch this because of us talking about movies have really opened up my eyes on how kind of the examination of a film as it's going along. And the first time I saw it, I thought the wedding scene was awful.
Interesting.
I thought it took way too long. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you're watching the scene because you want to see the Russian roulette. And, you know, like, oh, man, this is like, you know, how do these guys go crazy? You know, and then this time watching it, I was so wrapped up in the wedding, I didn't want it to end. I was having such a great time with those guys, you know, and as they're going along and they're dancing, no one's really getting too, you know, in a bad state. About the closest you get is the Vietnam vet comes back and they're kind of like, fuck you, you know, like, you know, we're gonna, fuck it. Like, you don't like America, fuck it. I guess that's your take on it. You know, you're not supporting our freedoms, fuck it.
Yeah, it reminded me, that sort of like jingoism reminded me of All Quiet on the Western Front, where they're excited to kind of like get in the thick of it and like they're looking forward to going to Vietnam.
Yeah. They all have a sense of purpose for why they're going.
Yeah.
And someone comes back that's seen it, and they're like, "You don't share this resolution that we have, you know, this this like
celebratory, like very patriotic feelings."
Yes,
that are going for it.
And that was about it. I think that was the only time that they really like. You're like, "Oh yeah," and so that wedding was going on, and then he takes off. He starts stripping down. He's running away. They're all laughing, and you know, and they get to a very touching moment.
Oh, I love that at the basketball court.
Yeah, he drapes him over and he's just looking at it. He goes, you know, walk and says, "Hey man, don't leave me over there. If I die, don't leave me over there. I want to be buried here in Pennsylvania." You know, and he's like, "Yeah,
God, oh, that's so good.
Yeah,
that's such a good scene.
You know, so that was really fun. And then you get to the deer hunting thing, and I thought it was a little fun of a metaphor for what was going on in life. Where Cazale leaves, doesn't bring his shoes, and you know, Mike, he's no, I'm not giving you my shoes. I'm done with that shit. And it's a very interesting way of which you could look at the government, and you have socialism in which, you know, we're the fruits of our labors get shared, and we're looking out for those that are underprivileged, you know, and then you have Michael maybe representing the other way of life of, I worked hard for those shoes. I'm not giving you a handout. I'm not, you know, and that's why we're going to Vietnam, is because we're, you know, or whatever it is. I'm not exactly sure why that war got started. North and South Vietnam going at it.
Yeah, it was like a product of the Cold War and communism, and
yeah.
That my history lesson is very surface level, so I can't offer a deep insight to it. But that's essentially what it boils down to.
And I thought it was an interesting. Just little analogy for where Michael was at with representing certain philosophies and where Stan was at, you know, and you had that, you had the one shot, you know. I gotta bring up Sam sent me something interesting.
I figured that one shot would carry out throughout the movie, because I knew it was going to be about like Russian roulettes, or it had a lot to do with Russian roulette, but I wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be in regards to the characters. Yeah,
and so they have that, and it's a really weird like piece of dialogue that they have in the trailer. Like, it's kind of like a deep moment that didn't really, like, it's not earned. It's just them talking, and then it's kind of, you can tell that it stands out. Like, that's like what the dialogue is for it to stand out.
Yeah.
So I gotta go off with what Sam said, because I think it's good, and you might be able to ponder on this a little bit. But you know, the final words of the main character and the end of a friendship, right? It's kind of like their last time that they're talking. One shot central theme with the Russian roulette bullet, isolation, one limb from Stevie, one shot at taking the Vietnam guards, one shot at getting in the chopper to escape, one shot at seeing a friend in the war during battle. And obviously the deer, you know.
And then, yeah, of course, towards the end,
towards the end, and he also says one shot because he knocked up, Stevie knocked up a gal with one shot. That's why they were getting married, you know.
Yeah, that's why she was looking at the dress and wondering if her bump was going to show.
Yeah, so
I like how the mother at the beginning is going on about how fat she is. Which is very ironic,
right? Like, it makes you like it kind of plays it off like you're thinking that she's like just that way, and it's not necessarily because she's impregnated and, you know, about to raise her kid. You know, that, and then the trees. I thought that was another interesting. I don't hunt with assholes. You're not an asshole like them, right? Like, you got this.
Yeah,
you know, I always tell people it's not two shots. You can't take down a deer with two shots. You get one shot.
There's a lot that they imply and not a whole lot that they show with the friendship between Mike and Nick.
Yeah,
and I really appreciate that, because you do get the sense that, like, they're in it together, and you don't get a lot with them. Like, you get a few significant moments, but that's all you need to kind of establish their relationship and how they feel towards each other. and like just kind of how they look at the world, because Nick is very much sort of kind of like goes by the seat of his pants, very much kind of loose with it, doesn't really have many worries about things. And then you've got Mike, who is always prepared, always kind of looking for the danger, and
calculated.
Is very calculated. Like the only time you really see him cut loose in this movie is the wedding,
when he gets drunk
and takes his clothes off.
Yeah.
Like, that's really the only moment, and then every other moment in this film is just very methodical and serious.
Who's there to pick him up when he does that?
It's Nick.
You know, you get to see how they play off each other, how much respect they have for each other, and you know, sometimes love doesn't always get brought up in hugs and kisses. It can be like, you know, all his friends watch him run around like an asshole, and they go, "Oh man, Mike's never like that because he's drunk," and Nick's like, "He's never like that because he's drunk. I'm gonna go, you know, take care of him."
Yeah, and
you know?
it's something to be said that you get a movie like that where there is kind of like, and I don't like using this word a whole lot, but like a bromance.
Yeah,
that was made in 1978. Like it's kind of crazy that you get a movie like that where probably not a whole lot going on in terms of like male friendships being examined the way that this movie examines it, you know?
Oh, and they do it in a very not dry, but it would definitely be like if you had like what way could we make this look masculine?
Yeah,
it's like, let me save my friend from
we don't want
him
to look too gay now.
Exactly. You know, like that's,
we know we just saved him from Russian roulette, but heaven forbid if they hug each other.
Yeah. Like, but they do it. It's a really good way of I mean, because there's plenty of ways that friendships get sparked and the respect that you can have from another person, and you know, and that love. So like, they did a really good job. I thought they did, and you could see that even they have respect for, because Linda's looking at Mikey, but Mike is friends with Nick and is like, I'm not going to do that to him, you know. And Nick probably sees Linda looking at Mike. And it's like, she might take off with him whenever, but because I know Nick, you know, loves me, like, he won't do that. And you can, like, that little triangle that you have going there, you can sense that those two guys won't risk it all because of that.
It's funny because I think in, like, one of the original first drafts of this script, I think Nick was supposed to be the one to come home from the war.
Oh, that would have been wild.
And Mike was the one that was going to be sending money to Steve and staying and playing Russian roulette. And I don't think the movie would have been as compelling that way.
No.
I think that it kind of works in placing Nick in that situation and transforming him from someone who is more positive and happy-go-lucky and kind of lives life, you know, in the fast lane. Well, not the fast lane, but like kind of living easy.
Yes.
And to somebody who just basically becomes a shell of a person. You see him by the end of the film, and he's basically dead without being dead.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he's not even him anymore. He doesn't recognize Mikey at first, and it's just very clear that he's out of his mind.
Oh, dude. So, I mean, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, here it is. You know, and then this time I'm like, oh, fuck, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just, like, think about your own friend. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be going through war. It could just be going through whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Guys could put this movie on, and they're like, hell yeah, cool Russian roulette scene. And then by the end of it, you're like, I'm emotionally damaged.
Yeah, like, you're just like, dude, like, I can't imagine.
Why am I crying?
Just throw your buddy in, like, any situation that it's just kind of like he's in above his head and he's lost himself. And it's like, fuck, what would you do? You know? And you'd be in the same shoes as Mikey in some weird Russian roulette underground whatever, trying to talk your friend off the ledge, which would sound pretty easy. You know, like,
yeah, wasn't it also implied that he was
heroin,
either doing heroin or like heroin was being injected into him?
Yes.
Yeah, so he wasn't even of sound mind. Really, the biggest moment of clarity is right before he shoots himself, and he kind of realizes for a moment what's happening.
And it's like, so like, oh, if he pulls that, like, don't pull the trigger. And if he does, there could be not a bullet in there. Like, it's not a given that he's going to do
Yeah, it's not a guarantee.
Right. And you have that, and that's where, like, you just, and, you know, I didn't break that because I've seen this before. I wish I would have saw it in a better state, because I bet you I would have cried like a baby, you know? But, like, watching it, even the second time, I'm like, oh fuck, like there's a chance that he gets out of this.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I mean, it's obviously like kind of the movie's got to go one way, but it gives you that little spark of hope, and that it's just so gut wrenching.
Yeah.
You know? And then De Niro, dude, like when he's doing the whole, like, you know, Dickie, no, we're all right, Dickie.
Yeah.
You know, like,
it reminded me of the Godfather 3 scene at the end, if it was done well.
oh, tragic.
That's two meanings of tragic right there. But yeah, I feel like there are some people who could probably see this movie and look at that scene, and they could maybe try to criticize it for how preposterous they might view it as, because,
Sure.
they have that emotionally heavy scene where he has that realization. He still chooses to pull the trigger, and then the bullet's in there. Like, people could say, oh, well, that's not the most logical thing. Like, he could have totally just pulled the trigger and no bullet would have flown through it anyway.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's one of those things where, like, the storytelling needs this to happen. The storytelling is the most effective if this happens. And because it's a possibility and because it's something that could happen, it's not out of the realm of having that emotional weight to it while still maintaining that logic.
Dude, the whole thing is like, you know, just life and what it's like before and after war. Or you could say any really traumatic experience that you may go through, right? And he does have that realization. But at the same token, if he realizes who Mikey is, he also realizes that he is a shell of who he was and that it will never be the same.
Yeah, there's like no going back type of thing happening.
Like, and if he doesn't pull that trigger, maybe they escape, and he's just sitting there thinking, like, I don't know. Like, you could see that he was losing a grasp on it when the doctor is like, what's your parents' names? And I think he gets it wrong. It's like, well, what's their date of birth? And he can't remember. Mm-hmm. Like, and he's just realizing that it's drifting on him. You know, that
who he was is not who he's become.
Right.
And there's really no way of going back to where he was before.
Yes.
He enjoyed life, and it was something that he looked forward to waking up to.
Yeah.
And then towards that scene, you're right. He's so emotionally damaged and broken that it doesn't even have a point to it anymore.
No, that's why he's doing it, and that's why the money gets sent off. And it's just like, if I'm going to keep getting money, I'll give it to someone that I care about. And you know, it might just be mail it to the same person. I don't remember who that is, but wherever it's going, give it to them. You know, like, and that's where when you look at it and you see it like that, you know, it really all is justified, and it does make sense. It just sucks that I had to go the one way.
What do you make of the scene of Nick going to the prostitute and almost sleeping with her, and even like wanting to call her Linda?
He's going through an identity crisis. Like, that whole time, I kind of thought it was a dumb scene. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, no, we're watching him tumble into, the other world, the limbo. You know, like he doesn't want to make those choices, but because of where he's at in life and because of how broken he is, I think he keeps making the wrong choice. Because it's just, it makes more sense to him now than it would have 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think all those things where we see him almost get out and almost make the right decision, and it's like that, you wouldn't, after watching the wedding scene, if you would have taken out that whole POW thing and went through and just showed him like walking up at the you wouldn't have been like, that guy's going to do that. Like, you're like, what are you doing, Nick? Like, there's no way you're even entertaining it. As much as you are happy-go-lucky, like, you know right and wrong and that this is not a good spot to be in. Mm-hmm. And yet he keeps going and making these decisions, as you can kind of tell his sense of identity is taking off from him, you know? And that's it's jarring. It's like one of those things where you're just, I was like, oh, this is like really awful.
Do you think that perhaps, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I completely 100%
I want to hear
get behind what you think about it.
Because I like your take on this too.
I wonder if a part of it is too where his character is trying to create some semblance of what his life used to be like with Linda, And therefore, he approaches the prostitute and wants to call her Linda because maybe he thinks in his mind that will snap him out of whatever funk he's in, and then he'll realize where he's going down on this road, and then he'll be able to turn back from it. But towards the end of it, he gets frustrated with the setting and the way things are and where he is going, that he doesn't see the point in it anymore, and he just walks away from it. And that's kind of like almost the final nail in the coffin, where it just kind of dooms his fate. And I'm wondering if there's a little bit of element in that, where like it's him attempting to get back to something familiar.
Yes. And I think that's why he did it, was a little bit of, I am a fish out of water. I want to try to make this as normal as it can be of life before. And I think we're both kind of on the same, like saying the same thing of these decisions that we're making are attempts to get back to what we know, or that normal life that he had. And I think that, I think that he made the decisions just because it's lost. It's gone, and he's lost a sense of purpose, a sense of identity, and he was in that. They said that, I read on the trivia, this takes place in 1967, 1968, 1975. So you got to imagine they were in that POW camp for years. And that's the life that he knows. That's what's normal to him now. And he was trying everything he possibly could to get back to the steel mill, and it just, there wasn't enough conviction or strong enough emotions to make him want to do it. Kind of makes you wonder, did he hear, Mike calling out for him in the car?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where he's driving away, audience members, we can hear it. You just got to assume because of the loud noises, the combustion and all that he had no idea. But
or maybe even if he could physically hear it, maybe he just subconsciously buried it.
Yeah.
And just chose to selectively not hear Mike's voice.
Disassociate and just live, this is what I know.
We're talking about this character quite a bit because I just think that Christopher Walken is amazing in this movie.
Dude, he did.
Like, it's so compelling seeing him, like young Christopher Walken, acting really well in a dramatic role like this.
He's got like a charming smile. So like in the beginning, when
he's kind of a handsome dude.
Dude, when he's like, like he's like sitting there and he's happy, and it's like, he's got things going his way, and he is, like you said, happy-go-lucky, but grounded enough to where he says he's got a sense of self-assurance, and
yeah.
And as you go along, he doesn't have like a whole lot of speaking lines. And as you go along, just him being an actor, you erode with him.
You're able to tell what he's feeling and what he's thinking just based on the way he carries himself.
Yes.
And that is such a great characteristic for an actor to have.
Yes.
And that's like one of the pinnacles of what an actor needs to be. I think he knocks it out of the park. And John Cazale, too. I think we need to talk about him, at least.
Did you, did you read up on him at all in this?
Yeah, this was the last movie that he was ever in. He was filming it while he had terminal lung cancer. And they shot all of the scenes with him in it first because they weren't sure if he was going to make it through the production of the film. Robert De Niro paid for his insurance.
Yes, because the studio won't insure him.
And then Meryl Streep was in the movie mostly because, or she at least wanted John Cazale in the movie. I don't remember which came first.
It was De Niro was friends with the New York City actors, so he got Meryl Streep in the movie, knowing that she was dating John, and that he would probably join the film because they were dating, and would want to be with her kind of like in his last moments.
Yeah, and Meryl Streep didn't want to like leave his side.
Yeah,
during the filming process. And it's really noteworthy. The way they weave it into the story makes sense. And their characters don't even have much of an interaction, really. Like Linda and Stan.
He does like one hug at like when he doesn't show up. He goes, "Oh, must have been the wrong cab. Maybe his flight got delayed."
Yeah,
he's like, "So sorry, Linda." He gives her like a hug, and he kind of is like ushering her out.
Yeah, but it's still a really compelling behind the scenes thing to learn about. And acting wise, he does a great job too. He's really good at playing those kind of like pathetic characters, like he does, like Fredo in Godfather, and now this movie.
You got 2 more John Cazale movies you got to watch because he's only in 5, all 5 nominated for Oscars, and I think.
Yeah, there's Dog Day Afternoon.
Yep,
and then I don't know what else.
The Conversation, which is a fantastic film with Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Or not Hugh Jackman.
He would have been a kid probably.
Oh my God, why can't I see his name? He was just in God bless America.
Well, okay, what movies was he in?
You want to do Hoosiers, The Replacements, Young Frankenstein. Welcome to Mooseport.
Oh, Gene Hackman?
Yes.
Okay.
Gene Hackman, Hugh Jackman. You can see where it gets. There's a lot of men in here.
There's a lot of Ackmans.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in the conversation. So if I were to tell you, like, before this thing started, that the guy Stan is going to die before this movie even finishes post-production, would you have believed me?
The way that he carries himself and the way that his acting is in this movie, I mean, probably not, but I've known this for a while.
Yeah.
I've known that this was like kind of his last movie and that like he hasn't done much, but he's a well-acclaimed actor, which is very impressive on his own. And that he used to was he married to Meryl Streep or was he dating Meryl Streep?
I think they were dating. Like there's a HBO documentary and they got, I don't think they were ever in anything together, but I think they got introduced as friends. So they dated. They were dating for a year, maybe two.
Yeah,
it could be off. I don't want to look it up. I'll just be wrong.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a really cool thing about the behind the scenes. I'll have to look into more of John Cazale's filmography.
There's no. It's just those other two films
of them that I haven't seen.
Dog Day's awesome. And the conversation I've seen, and I don't remember him much in it. I'm guessing he plays kind of that same character, but one of the interesting tidbits of trivia in this thing is that when they do the Russian roulette, or not Russian roulette, but when the second hunt,
yeah,
and he's acting like an asshole. Mm-hmm. There's really a bullet in that gun when he clicked it.
I read about that. That's insane.
That's
fucking crazy. I think when I read that sentence, I literally said out loud with no one else around, that's fucking crazy.
Right. Like, they both agreed to do it to give it more realism, and Cazale was, like, always checking the gun, but, like...
Yeah, because they would make sure the round wasn't in the barrel.
Yeah. I mean, dude...
But it's still fucking nuts. I don't
want to play that off. Yes. That was wild.
And it shows, because it's one of the more effective scenes in the movie between him and his friends. Because that's like the lowest point in the movie that they ever get to as a group is that second hunting trip.
Oh yeah, well Nick's not there, and like Mike said, he doesn't want to hunt with a bunch of assholes. So you could just tell he was enjoying himself as much as he could, but his old Fred Bear wasn't there, and he just wasn't. It was kind of just like I'm tired of these guys acting like clowns when we're trying to be serious, and like. You almost think that he's just going to brush it off because, he had the shot at the deer, the one shot, doesn't take it, and it realizes that he's not himself. He screams out into the nothingness. And it's like, oh, my friends are being these guys. I'm just going to play it off. And he can't. And that's why he gets so fucking like, you want to play this game? You fucking want to play this game? Pff, let's fucking play. Yeah. Let's go,
It's very intense.
Yeah, and that's when you kind of realize, too, like, oh, life isn't the same. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of at that point, that Mikey's all messed up. Yeah. Like that's when it gets to like, yikes.
Not only is Nick not the same, but yeah, life for those guys and those group of people is not the same.
And
it's kind of a representation of the way the Vietnam War was having an impact on American culture and the way that we looked at that kind of thing. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like one of the first movies that was made. Kind of touching on the Vietnam War on like a feature film scale, wasn't it?
We still had troops in Vietnam. Like I know we pulled out, and I don't know how long, like off the coast of Saigon or whatever. But
yeah, because like the Saigon incident was like 75.
I think so. Yeah,
and this movie came out like just 3 years after.
They like wrote it while it was going on, and were filming while it was. I mean, if it's in post, that stuff takes it's got to take half a year to a year once it's in post, right?
Yeah, it depends, but for a movie this long and with this much behind the scenes drama, I don't doubt it.
Right. So yes, the war was still going on, and this was like it's really weird too because they take the approach of it's not an anti-war film, it's just a slice of life having war intertwined into what we're going through. Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because they screened this for the studio executives, and they didn't like the fact that. It had to do with Vietnam, and they said something along the lines of, this is going to poke a stick in the eye of American people watching this. Which is funny because like the Vietnam War itself was very controversial. It was kind of like the turning point in U.S. perception of the military, and I don't know, it just kind of has like a wretched history in itself, to where like it was already subject to criticism. And then this movie comes out and it doesn't really take like one side or the other. It kind of just shows you at face value what it is.
Dude, yeah, like if you think about it, they're only in Vietnam for all of 30 minutes of that film.
Yeah, and it's not a war movie.
And there's only one real aspect of like a war scene. Outside of that, it's just them being POWs and getting back home.
Yeah, like Wikipedia lists this as an epic war drama, which, I mean, it's got elements of war in it, and yeah, it's a big part of the story, but I mean, this is more of a character film.
Oh, I think the war is used as a device to, like I said,
it's a backdrop.
Yeah, and you could take like a lot of traumatic events but you just couldn't raise them to those stakes, I want to say. But you could take a traumatic event and take out the Vietnam War and put in something else that's happened that was pretty like chaotic, that affected the American people, and you'd probably still have the same result. I mean, it's not like an in-depth look at PTSD or anything like that, but it is like you have the before, you have the problem, and then you have the aftermath.
Yeah.
And it happened to use the Vietnam War at the time, but like the story, like the one they said that they kind of borrowed this from, took creative liberties, set in Vegas. Like, imagine your friend has a gambling problem and you go there into Vegas to get him out.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been the same, thing.
That's originally what the script was kind of going to be.
Yeah,
it was going to be set in Vegas.
Yeah, and he's just like, well, I want to get Russian roulette going, and I want to raise the stakes. So how do we raise the stakes? I mean, anytime you're looking at that, you want to take something to the nth degree. It's like, what's the biggest stake that we could have? And like in terms of that madness, it would be war.
I really do like the "God Bless America" moment at the end.
Yeah, I was wondering how you're going to think. I thought it was like odd.
It's kind of odd, but I mean, it kind of reflects the feeling of defeat that these characters have, and the acknowledgement that like nothing is going to be the same. And the fact that they're singing "God Bless America" is sort of a reflection of the way American culture was shifted permanently by the Vietnam War.
A little bit more, because I'm agreeing with, like in my head I'm agreeing with it, and I think I'm saying for me, I'm like thinking like, all right, I mean, it's that idea that whatever happens as a country, we can move on past it because we are of one blood and one country. And that's what I'm kind of thinking, where it's a very weird juxtaposition in my head that you may have lost friends and your lives are over and you're 32 and but hey, like still sing the song. And
I think I saw it more of as like almost an ironic sort of thing happening in the film.
Yeah.
Where like they're singing it in this very like kind of defeated, sad way, where like "God Bless America," the way that they're singing it is almost as if it's not saying that. It's like,
right,
I don't want
okay.
God to bless America right now because America doesn't deserve it for the shit that it's done.
Right. Yeah, that's yes. I think either way you look at it, that's why it fits in. I guess, and maybe that's why I was a little off put by it.
Yeah. It's a good reflection too of the piano scene earlier in the film.
Yes. They do a really good job tying in music with this thing. I don't know if there was ever a time that there was a out of place moment with it.
Yeah.
That really weird like violin.
Some of it did feel a little dated to me.
Yes.
Like some of it was like, oh, this is like, I don't think this choice would have been made if this movie was made today.
No, I don't think so either, because it felt like a very like 1960s Bruce Banner walking on the sidewalk, the Incredible Hulk, and they play that,
Yeah, it was kind of like a product of that old sort of like 50s, 60s TV style music.
Yeah, that's at least how I felt. I mean,
I agree with you.
Yeah, I liked it. It just maybe so I shouldn't say it felt off at times. It just was a very unique,
interesting choice.
Product of the time.
Yeah. There's some moments where I felt if they didn't have any music at all, it would have been a better scene.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kind of a product of the time. They're figuring out the filmmaking and how they want to put it together.
Yeah.
So yeah, really enjoyable movie. Was there anything else we wanted to say about?
The only other thing that I got is it's got to get a shout out because Axel was fantastic. Did you read on him at all?
He's not an actor.
Yes,
The guy who plays him. Let me find the actor's
Chuck
name.
Aspergren.
I believe you're right. Where is he in this cast? Oh yeah, Chuck Aspergren.
Yeah.
So on Wikipedia it reads, Aspergren was not an actor. He was the foreman at an East Chicago steelworks, visited early in pre-production. I'm going to cut around that so it sounds like I got it in one shot.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Speaking
of themes.
Yeah. By De Niro and Camino. They were so impressed with him that they offered him the role. He was the second person to be cast in the film after De Niro.
So they were saying that those two guys were going, they were doing character work, visiting steel mill workers.
Yeah, like location scouting, probably.
No, for character development.
Oh, like to get in the role.
Yeah, and they met Chuck, and he was so outgoing that they threw him in this thing, and like you're watching this thing, and you see Axel, and it's like, oh, I wonder what he's done since then. Like he's very
he goes very well with it.
And he fits into all the scenes really good in a very everyone's got a friend like that, that you thought, and he walked in there. He's like, fuck it, we're just going to get drunk and have a good time and shoot this movie.
He looked like he should have been an actor that was in like old Westerns with like Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, and kind of like that sort of like hair, beard, lumberjack look, that like old cowboy gunslinger type. But yeah, I was very surprised that to learn that he wasn't an actor. But he does a good job.
So I wanted to say that, and then the interesting thing is, so they talked about Derek Washburn after he got laid off. He feels like that he was part of the game. They shuffled him in, had him write this thing, and then shuffled him out, and then he went on he was a carpenter, so he went back to being a carpenter. Yeah. And it's funny that you got two guys that are heavily associated with this film that went back to provide like service work. Chuck went back to being a steel worker.
Because Michael Camino is not really like a household name director.
Yeah. Did you see? And now I know why the second film fucking bombed. You know what his second film was?
Heaven's Gate.
Yeah. And they gave him all the money. That's another movie that I want to see the behind. I don't know if I think I want to watch it and then watch the.
Ooh. Budget of $44 million, box office of $3.5 million.
$44 million in like 1980.
Yeah.
Like, that is $100 million film.
Jesus.
There's
a controversies page on the Wikipedia for Heaven's Gate. That's not great.
Yeah, like, and this dude is such a fucking sleazeball that just somehow worked his way into directing this thing. And don't get me wrong, it's a well-made movie. But just hearing about this guy and like what he does and his ploys to get, like, it doesn't shock me that.
Yeah, kind of sort of take the side of Derek Washburn.
Yeah, well, not only that, but like, now I see why the second film bombed. You probably wrote it yourself. You didn't get the actors that you wanted or needed, and
it's telling in the industry who is a hack and who has talent, because like if people just surround themselves with people who can like refine their ideas, then maybe there's something there. But then like if they all of a sudden work on something on their own and then it sucks ass, it's like, oh, you're a bit of a hack, aren't you?
Yeah, seriously.
Or like lightning in a bottle thing, like fucking M. Night. God.
Yeah, I know. I wonder how fucking he got Sixth Sense to turn out the way it did.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that was about it. We touched on John Cazale and Walken and De Niro stuff. De Niro really believed in this film after reading the script, and that's why he got.
He was great.
He went through the measures that he did, and then So that's all I got. I think that was it. I know Sam threw a bunch of shit at me. I think we touched on it, but
nice.
Yeah,
have a little practice round with your brother.
Well, he's kind of the not inspiration for this, but he loves that wedding scene or the bar scene, I think. And so like. Me and him, we'll talk about like top 5 scenes or things that, and I remember him saying Deer Hunter probably like 6 months ago. And I laughed. I was like, dude, I don't remember shit about that movie except I was like, yeah, it's whatever, And it got like a pretty whatever rating, and that's why I was like, I want to, now that we've gone through, and I, at least for me personally speaking, with the examination of characters and the film, and kind of watching it from a more critical look, watching it, I was like, I want to see this thing again. And dude, that wedding scene is it's one of my, that thing went by so fast.
Yeah.
Like, I could not believe that the first time I watched that
I
thing,
read that
like,
it was 51 minutes. I'm like, it didn't feel like 51 minutes.
No, I was like, I'm going to get through the wedding scene.
I thought it was like maybe a half hour.
Tops, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you have a little bit of stuff like thrown in there, but
Speaking of that wedding scene, one more thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap.
Yeah.
Which I kind of found funny. Apparently, to save money on props, they told the extras that were in the wedding reception scene to bring boxes that looked like gifts and to put them on the table. So that way, not only would they save money on the props, but they would also look more like actual gifts instead of like something that's manufactured and too samey. Apparently, most of the people that brought those actually put stuff in the boxes, like silverware and dishes and like utensils and like toasters and appliances and all that stuff. Like, and the director said, like, I don't know where this stuff went to, but God bless whoever got all that. Which is very funny, and it's kind of like a cool little, it's a cute little fact that I learned while reading about this movie.
That's awesome.
Because I even had that thought too while I was watching. I was like, that's a shit ton of presents.
Dude, those things were stacked up. Like, it looked like a Macy's Day Christmas parade with all the, like when they just stack up the gifts. I'm sure it's just boxes, but like, yeah.
It was insane. It was crazy. It was super notable, and I wanted to bring it up because I found it amusing.
I think the only negative I had with this thing is watching all those people drink, and they were taking like the...
Oh yeah, like they do that so much in movies and TV, where like really they take a little tiny sip.
Yeah, and I know it's either like, hey, why don't you just don't put alcohol in there, or not shoot them drinking it,
or like there'll be a character where they're like, oh, I'm so hungry, I could eat this whole thing, and then they take like the little tiniest squirrel bite of a cookie or something.
Yes.
It's like, I don't believe you're hungry as you say you are.
Yeah, it's just annoying to watch.
You big goofball.
It takes me out of it.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
What would you rate this film?
Now, I went first. You got to go first because I went first with the creator.
Yes, that's right. You are correct. So this film, I would give an 8 out of 10.
Ooh.
Definitely closer to a 9. If I ever watch it again, I might bump it up. But it's one of those things where I did feel the runtime a little bit, and that kind of dragged it a tiny amount for me.
Yep.
But I love the characters. I love the actors. And the way it's shot, too. And we didn't even mention, like, the cinematography and, like, the filmmaking itself. Because I really love that opening scene of where they're in the steel mill and it kind of focuses on the highway and, like, the kind of dark, moody aspect of it.
They do a great job of grabbing the setting. And it didn't use a soundstage is another thing that I read.
Yeah, they shot all on location.
Yeah, and they do a great job of picking up the vibe of the town, the atmosphere of the town, and like even when they go into the POW camp or they're in Nam, like it's all very realistic shots, and you really feel in this world.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I love the way it was put together. And if there ever is a version of it that's 2.5 hours, I would like to check it out to see how I feel. But I like this movie overall, and I think that most of what it has to offer is very great. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Nice. I will say, I bet you if you watch it again, it goes to a 9 because you're able to pick up on other things.
Oh, probably.
I bet you there's enough in this that it might feel a little quicker. Last little trivia is that the Vietnam actors were really slapping Walken and De Niro.
Yeah, I read that they got someone who hates Americans.
Yeah.
So that they would be willing to hurt them.
Yeah. So they got in there because no one wanted to slap De Niro or Walken.
That's funny.
But yeah, I thought it was. I was very curious about it because it looked kind of real, and then I'm like, that can't be real. This movie was originally an 8 out of 10 for me. It has now gone up to a 10 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Skip to the 9 altogether.
Dude, I fucking loved it. I thought that it went down. It does drag. And I think that because I am with the movie enough that I give it that grace, where I'm like, all right, there's not enough not going on or where it doesn't feel rewarding, doesn't feel justified to be that long. I do agree. There's probably some fat that you could trim. But even like I said, with the Linda stuff that I think could go away, you've made out some very good points about why it's impactful and staying in there. So, this movie's fantastic, and I think I'd have a hard time telling people to watch it now. Like before, I used to just be like, check it out. I mean, it's got some weird, some bad stuff going on in it, but Russian roulette is kind of interesting notion. This, that. Now I'm like, I'd be careful. Like if you want to feel waterworks, like give your friend Johnny a call and then hang up on him and be like, man, I really love that guy, and then watch this thing.
Yeah, have a nice conversation with your buddy and then put on that scene with Christopher Walken at the end.
Yeah,
it's harrowing. Yeah, cool, awesome discussion. Speaking of discussion, we're gonna discuss some of the answers we got for the question for the audience.
Yeah,
So I got a couple that were straight up text messages.
Okay.
So I have a few. I don't have a lot, but I have a few to work from.
Okay.
So this won't be a whole like super long conversation, but I figured it'd be fun to have.
Justified.
Regardless. Yes, Justified. Timothy Olyphant. So the question for the audience was, do you have any movie-related tattoos / want any in the future? If so, what are they? And the first one that we have is from Matt. And this is one of my coworkers. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, hey, is it okay if I use the tattoo that you got for the podcast to discuss about it? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And he has a Brightburn tattoo on his forearm, like the inside of his forearm.
Interesting.
And it's the character Brightburn, like kind of floating there with the mask and the shirt and the cape and everything. And it's very well done. It's a good tattoo. And it's interesting because it's not even really his favorite movie. It's one of those where he likes what it represents more than what it is.
It's interesting.
It's an interesting thing for me to learn, but I could get behind his reasoning, and it is a nicely done tattoo. Yeah. Have you seen Brightburn?
No, I have not. But if I remember correctly, it's if Superman was evil.
That's kind of the gist of it. If he was evil and if he was 10 years old. Yeah,
kind of being raised maybe in an improper way, and instead of being grown in Midwest America, loving corn and.
Yeah. It's funny because he got that tattoo, and I almost felt bad because I did watch that movie, and I was telling him about it, and I was like, I don't love it. I don't think it's a good movie.
That's why that's where the laugh was from. But it looks like it has some very awesome visuals, and that it's got an interesting notion behind it.
It's an interesting premise.
Yes.
And that's the most it has going for it, but it... And I don't mean to be mean.
No, we got it's an awesome looking tattoo.
I've had so many conversations with him that he totally understands it and like my point of view.
Well, you said it's not his favorite film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if he does like what it represents, he's behind the notion of it. Then we are on the same page. It's not like we're just shitting over it. We're just saying that it's not a great film. Well, I haven't even seen it.
It would be awesome if the film was set in an environment where it could properly utilize the premise, because it's set on like a farm and in the woods.
But it's like Superman.
But it's like evil Superman. So I would want to see him like kind of wreck shop and like do really evil things in like a populated area, kind of like
That's not where he grew up.
Go ham. Yeah, but I mean,
I know what
you
you're
can
saying.
Take creative liberties.
Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those where like I don't know. I would check it out again. Maybe I'll have a different perspective on it. But yeah, he's got a Brightburn tattoo.
Yeah, you might knock it from a 5 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Just make that grand leap. Wow. Yeah. The next one is from Levi, who we've had on this podcast.
Of course.
And
well, I don't. Levi, because I almost used J Hall's phrase. But yes.
Oh yeah, we don't want to assign a new one.
Yeah, no, we can't. There's only one J Hall.
There's only one J Hall.
Yeah.
Levi, friend of the pod. We can just say that.
Co-host.
Former guest co-host. Could be another guest co-host in the future.
Yes.
Probably will be. He's got the Millennium Falcon tattoo.
Oh, that fits him like a glove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't he had more right? I thought he had maybe more like movie themed ones, but maybe that was it.
No, well,
Oh, you know what he's got that the rest of his family has, except for Gideon?
Elvish from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, but Gideon also has an Elvish tattoo, but it's different. So
Speak friend and enter.
the whole Hunter family, aside from Gideon, has the Elvish tattoo that says family.
Oh.
And that's another one that you could argue maybe it's movie related, maybe it's more so like with just the Lord of the Rings franchise and like the books
maybe
and
that's
everything.
what connects the Hunter family is Lord of the Rings. And
I know that's what connects the Hunter family.
There you go.
So I know for a fact that's what connects.
That's why they got it, and then they get family from Elvin and
Elvish. Yeah. Elvis.
Elvin.
Priscilla.
I like Elvin better.
Alvin.
Elvin.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Elvin. Yeah, it's just Legolas running around with them. Elvin.
Okay. And then it's just Sauron going into a dance. That'd be crazy.
You haven't even seen Lord of the Rings to touch on it.
I have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've seen all the movies. Well, I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I haven't seen the Hobbit movies.
If there
still
was
need to
a
check those
mystical
out.
battle, okay, what franchise would win? Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Really?
100%. It's not even close. It's not even fucking close.
I'm not talking. I'm saying like in
You
real
get
life. You.
I know.
Oh man, you were. Yeah.
I know, but like, here's the thing: you take a bunch of like magic witches and wizards, and you put them up against like literal fucking deities, then they're gonna be decimated. And like, so are we including from Lord of the Rings like all the armies, even if they're like opposed to each other, or are we just including like elves and men?
Well, yes, I am, but I'm not saying. So there's two aspects of view. One would be the whole Lord of the Rings team, like Saruman, like met up with Frodo and was like, "Hey, we're doing this."
Yeah.
I would think I would agree with you, but now I'm also kind of going back because let's just say Hogwarts is another territory on that map.
Okay.
So like
the whole world of Harry Potter, not
Yeah.
just Hogwarts.
Yeah, but we don't have to take the Muggles in here because they'd go
No,
out.
but I think there's other like different wizarding schools.
There is because
I
yes,
think.
no, you're right with the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they get the Russian guy and he's from a different
Interesting.
school.
Now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm kind of starting to sway more towards wizards.
Towards Harry Potter.
Yeah, dude. Because what would have to happen is it turns into a game of Risk, and you'd have to form alliances. So like,
Yeah.
Hogwarts would have to get the Russian guy, and they'd all have to team up to get on one side. And the Battle of Helm's Deep would be Harry Potter on that fence post
Yeah.
with the whole.
I'm just thinking if Sauron and Gandalf were a part of the Lord of the Rings side
I guess
fighting with
Gandalf
them,
is a wizard too.
they would fuck shit up.
I don't know. Dumbledore's supposed to be like Gandalf, right? Or do you think he's half the Wizard of Gandalf?
He's not nearly as powerful as Gandalf.
Another funny thought to think about is wizards having occupations and Dumbledore being a teacher and Gandalf being like a Navy SEAL wizard.
That's a accurate analogy.
Yeah. It's kind of funny to think about. And when I say it out loud, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm Team Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
All the way.
Same.
And I think Gideon
too.
would agree.
Yeah, there you go. People to think about.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of Gideon,
yeah.
our last one is from him, and this is a text that he sent me. So I'm just going to read what he wrote.
Okay.
I still think I would probably get Lord of the Rings tattoos in the future and or also get something associated with Cloud Atlas. But that's more for the novel and not the movie. Technically, both of those are books that turned into movies, but whatevs. So,
Like that, yeah.
the Lord of the Rings, because he has, like I said, he has the one that says friend.
Mm-hmm.
That
Speak, friend, and enter.
yes, it's his tramp stamp. But he's got that, but he wants the family one too. And then I guess he also wants a Cloud Atlas tattoo, which that'd be kind of interesting. He could get like the birthmark.
I've never seen Cloud Atlas.
Really?
Yeah,
That is interesting.
yeah. And there's
Interesting.
it came and went. And then
we should have Gideon back on to talk about that movie.
Yeah. As long as it's not like the creator, I'd do fine.
We'll see how you feel about it. It's interesting. It's very unique. I don't think it's like any other movie I've seen before.
It's ambitious.
It's very ambitious.
Yes,
it's very ambitious.
I think that's
whether or not some things land is up to you.
that's what I'm saying, dude. I like. There's always that, like, everyone's got, like, there's always someone's gonna have a film that, like, someone's favorite film will be the creator, like, in this world.
Oh, I could see it.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so you hear that, like, you'll watch a film, and what was the one we watched with Liam Neeson?
Oh God, Retribution.
That will be someone's favorite film in this world. Like, whether they're 85
I would like to meet them.
Or yeah, exactly.
They relate to the character because he's old as fuck.
That's all I'm saying. So, like, it's, you hear those things, and when Gideon told me his was Cloud Atlas, I just was like, and that's why that phrase is that phrase. Because I've never heard anyone that's ever said you got to watch it or has seen it. Knowing
the film and, like, having watched it, like, at least probably 2 times now, it makes sense why it's his favorite.
Yeah. Yes. And I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I believe you.
Yeah. It's very much in his wheelhouse of movies that he likes. Yeah. Be curious to have a conversation about it. We should have him on the show again. I've been wanting to have him on for a while, and I think he would do it. I talked to him about it recently, and he said that he'd be down. So
sweet, yeah. If we ever get a time to do that, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Also, I've been meaning to bring this up, but I keep forgetting to tell you. Megan and I finished Breaking Bad.
Oh,
so whenever we want to do our Breaking Bad episodes, potential plural, we can get the ball rolling on that. So
we gotta, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we just got it because that's going to be a full month of.
Because I would probably want to rewatch it.
Well, and that's what. Well, if we rewatch it, also we can't just do 1 through 6 in one show.
No,
we'd have to.
We'd have to divide it up.
Yeah, 1 through 3 or 1 through 2, like.
Yeah, like one episodes could be seasons 1 and 2.
Yep.
The next one, 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And then a whole episode on just season 5 because it's 16 episodes.
Right.
So it's basically 2 seasons.
Yes.
Because they did the whole weird divide thing.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we can get the ball rolling on that sometime soon too.
That'd be awesome.
Things in the pipe.
Yes, you guys heard it first.
Things in the pipe. And speaking of things in the pipe,
yeah,
I get to make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm 2 for 2 recently. All right.
With me recommending things that you like?
No, with me recommending things
that I like.
But I got the Deer Hunter
that we both like,
and the Beta Test. So,
I think you're gonna really love this. I'm pulling up some info about it.
Uh-oh.
So,
am I gonna have a chance to guess this thing? Or am I gonna know, like, right away?
So, this film, it's been a while since we've had, like, a real indie movie on the podcast. Like, the Beta Test was probably the closest thing of recent memory. And this film has so much auteur directing behind it and has a powerful voice that is unique to its director. It came out 2013. It was directed by Neil Breen. I'm recommending Fateful Findings. This is a movie that you can find on YouTube and that you can watch for free.
Okay.
And let me just pull that up real quick, just to get the runtime. So it is 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Okay.
So about, feature length. And let me tell you, Mac, I don't think you're ready for this.
I don't think I am either. Just the title alone makes me nervous.
Fateful Findings, directed by Neil Breen, 2013. It's on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
And
a great sign.
I don't want to tell you anything about it. I don't want you to look up anything about it.
I'm not going to.
Until you watch it.
I'm just going to go into it, and I'm hoping that I'm not scarred for life.
Oh, we'll see where you are at the end of this endeavor. I'm so excited to watch this.
There's like the pod that I used to listen to is that he could get live ammunition for, like, oh, you're going to do this movie to me, I'm going to give you that one. Mm-hmm. And there are, like, so many movies that I haven't seen that I know would just be fun just to throw out here so we could have these, like, etched into our mind. But I haven't seen them. So at the risk of trying to off put you, I could also do it to myself. So that's why I get frustrated. So Fateful Findings.
Fateful Findings.
Fateful
Directed
or
by
Fateful?
Fateful
Yeah, that doesn't sound
Findings. Directed by Neil Breen, starring Neil Breen, written by Neil Breen, edited by Neil Breen.
Okay. This has a room sense to it now.
You'll find out.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
You've seen this already?
I know of it. I haven't watched the full thing.
My God.
So we're kind of going into this holding hands.
Jesus Christ.
We're like Nick and Mike from The Deer Hunter.
I hope
we're diving into Vietnam head first.
That's what I don't. Let's do. I wanted to dive into the wedding head first. Oh God.
Well, after this, you'll want to marry me. Trust me. So cool. We're gonna do Fateful Findings. If you guys don't want to be spoiled for that film, directed by Neil Breen, be sure to check that out before episode 57. 57 episodes we've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's wacky tobacco. We appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed our discussions. If you want to, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can do that. We also have a website, www.neoncrewpodcast.com. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to give us good 5-star ratings on those, we would appreciate it. I might come to your house and kiss you with your consent, though. I don't want to be a creep. And
don't want to get that explicit tag.
No, do not want to get that explicit tag. We would be very limited if we had that explicit tag. Believe me, more so than we are now. Be sure to cop some merch. You can get that on the Etsy page. There's a link on our website and also in the description of this podcast, whatever platform you're listening on. And I think that's about it. Is there anything I'm missing?
In the famous words of Charlie Bronson's mustache, WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.